Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you so much for joining me here today. This is your one-stop shop for cryptocurrency analysis, among many other things. Now, we're taking a look here today at Near, which is Near Protocol. If I'm not mistaken, it was a request from my community member. Thank you, Elwood, for recommending that I cover this here today. Now, moving forward, I'm not a financial advisor. This is for educational purposes only. You should always do your own research and take ownership of your own trades. And what I mean by that is just learn as much as you can from as many people as possible. Don't listen to me for advice. Develop your own style, develop your own habits. But obviously, adopt best practice and good philosophies, things that are sound, right? And that's where I try to come in, of course, for my community members. Now, I do have a Patreon account where I share all my trades with my community. That's what this is for. That's why I design these videos, is to ensure that we all stay in the know, and I help you follow along with my trading style. So if you like what you see here in this video, of course, consider subscribing. Check that out, of course, in your own time. But just know that we only look at the technical analysis. There's no fundamentals here, but I always recommend you do your own research regarding the fundamentals. And again, I'm not a financial advisor by any means. I've just been in the industry for over 15 years, and I can tell you that this has been a wonderful experience so far, even more so being able to share this with my members. So thank you again to all of you. I can't express enough gratitude. Appreciate you very much. Now, moving forward, without further ado, why don't we just go ahead and jump right into it? Let's check it out. Let's get to it. All right, folks, let's go ahead and take a look here at Near. And just before we do, we always look at Bitcoin and Ethereum before we get a baseline on the market, just to ensure we know kind of what's going on here, because obviously Bitcoin, Ethereum, they're the two largest coins in the industry. We need to know how they're handling in the market, what they're doing, and then we can make an informed decision on the altcoins that we decide we want to invest in, right? So that's the whole point of that. Just keep in mind, because I get that question sometimes, like, why do you do that every video? Well, if you don't do this every time, you're doing yourself a disservice. Start getting the habit of at least looking at Bitcoin first, because this is basically the catalyst for 95% of all the price action in the market, right? So keep that in mind. And I also get this question a lot too. What is my exchange that I use? I'm primarily on Binance, but more importantly, I use TradingView.com desktop application to look at all of my trades before I jump in. Even though yes, Binance has TradingView.com, kind of installed within it, it's much more limited on the actual indicators and oscillators that you can use. So I'll show you here in a moment what that looks like. But I do recommend the paid version. There's a link in the description below for a free month if you want to consider checking that out. So here's the first thing we do. We always look at the simple moving averages, just really quick to get a baseline here, because on the 4-hour chart, this is one of the charts, concurrent with the 1-day chart that all the industry leaders are using, right? So we can kind of identify where the price action is on these two time frames. It's more important. So the 4-hour chart, essentially, we're looking at the simple moving average, the 200 and the 50, these two here. Basically, the purple is the 200 and the 50 is the orange line. The price is above both, whereas the price actually tested the 50-day simple moving average here recently, rejected, and continued on its upwards trajectory to where it's at right now at about 50,700. So keep in mind, we still haven't closed over the 50,000 mark yet. So if we look at the 1-day chart, yes, this new candle is above, but it hasn't finished closing yet. We have approximately 9 hours left in this trading cycle. So obviously it looks like it's fairly consistent with the fact that it should close above 50,000. But just note, if it doesn't, then we'll still be considering that as a resistance, not a support. And I just know that once the price, basically the price closes above 50,000 for Bitcoin on the 1-day chart, or essentially the 1-week chart as well, we're going to be seeing a lot more bullish sentiment moving forward here. So there's a strong chance most of these other altcoins that are ready to take off, the ADAs, the BNBs, Maddox, Litecoin, obviously that one just took off, but a lot of them are getting ready to explode. And that will happen once 50,000 is kind of closed, right? And we need to close that on the 1-day chart first. So just keep that in mind. We're not out of the woodwork yet, but we're very close. I think it's likely we're going to probably have a very green weekend if that happens. Okay, so moving forward, that's kind of where we're at there for Bitcoin. Not much else to note except that we do have a pretty strong support and resistance level, more so a support now at 49,300. That's what this line is here, and a secondary support at 46,800. All right, so 46.8, 49.3, we were stuck in that channel for over 2 weeks. We're likely to break above and stay above now. It does seem very ideal that we're going to be in the 50,000 plus range, or at least 49,300 plus range. That's a good sign. So moving on to Ethereum. Very similar situation here in a sense of how bullish it is right now. Ethereum is doing very well. In fact, when Bitcoin was going sideways, a lot of others would migrate over to Ethereum, and that's what we're seeing here as well. So there's a strong chance that Ethereum will test its previous all-time high. And if you see here, this line up here, that is 4,150. So 4,150 approximately is the major, basically on the 1-day chart, if you see from before, that's when it hit its all-time high. Okay, so that's its highest point. Obviously, we don't count this little wick on the candlestick. It actually closed at about 4150, 4170 range. So that is the next major resistance level for Ethereum. So keep your eye on that, see how it responds to that. It'll likely break through and shoot through, because a lot of times there's a short squeeze that occurs at major resistance levels. So just be mindful of what could happen there. But right now, if the price does retrace back down, we're looking at 35.50 as a pretty strong support. I'll go and extend that out here. And then also we have another support level here as well at 32.50. So heaven forbid we do lose that secondary support. We've got a tertiary support here, of course, at that point. So all in all, looking pretty good for Ethereum. I would say, sky's the limit for the most part. We're likely going to see the previous all-time high broken and move past, because I feel like Bitcoin will be on its merry way to 60,000 here soon. Okay. Now Near, let's just go ahead and take a look at this here. Now this is the first time ever looking at Near myself, so thank you to my patron for recommending that I cover this. I think it was Elwood. Thank you very much for asking that I go ahead and cover this. And the whole point of me looking at this is to ensure that you understand, best practice and kind of how to navigate this. And the best practice in most cases is to look at the one-day chart, work your way down, but to identify its average true range before moving forward, right? Now, some coins will exceed its previous all-time high and just continue on, like Solana, for example, ADA. A lot of those just took off recently, and they're in uncharted territory. So we're just kind of quickly identifying support and resistance levels as we move along. But now, right now, we still have previous, highs and previous lows, etc., to be able to rely on. So it's kind of nice in that sense. So we'll see what happens with Near. It is actually getting near its previous all-time high. And I don't think I looked, on this one here, again, this is the Binance exchange. Unless it was a recent ICO date of October 14th, 2020, there's a strong chance that that is essentially its initial coin offering. So what I'm getting at is its current all-time high. Most recent all-time high is $7.38, or $7.40. We can round up. Let's go ahead and put that on the calendar here, the chart. It's funny. I've been saying calendar a lot lately because there's time involved. I don't know why. Disregard that, but this is the chart, of course, and bear in mind the most previous all-time high. And this was back in what? March of 2021. Obviously, that was a few months ago, but it was in March. So March was actually before Bitcoin sold off on the 17th of April, right? As we can see here, this red candle, series of candles here, that's when Bitcoin sold off. So think about it this way. March to April was 50 to 64,000 for Bitcoin. Okay, we're at 50,000 right now, and Near is approximately at its previous all-time, basically average true range. Okay, so the average true range for Near when Bitcoin was at its best is about 480, upwards of about 740, and we're getting closer to 740. Honestly, at this point, we're like 650-ish right now. So that tells me that unless we can break the previous all-time high, it's going to be stuck in this channel, because the simple fact that, we got 50 to 60,000 that we're going to be trending towards now, with Bitcoin likely closing above 50,000. Therefore, I think its average true range is going to possibly keep it within a channel here. What it could do too is it might have an ascending wedge pattern where it's going to start working its way up and continue to push up towards this. That would be the likelihood, considering the fact that it's pumping here now and it's done a lot of good stuff here in the recent past. I mean, we can see how hard it jumped up. Yes, it retraced, but it had some good sideways action, and now it's up again. These are all really good signs to look for in a coin like this, right? So just bear that in mind. There's a strong likelihood that it will probably test its previous all-time high. Now, if it breaks and stays above and holds above on the one-day chart, then we're going to take a look at this again and kind of see what's going on. But I would say between now and then, there's a strong likelihood we're going to see kind of an ascending wedge pattern here forming, and we'll see a continuation to the upside. But how much further it can go, it's going to be hard to tell just yet, because we have to break that previous all-time high to know what its potential is. I think it does have potential to break that, though. I mean, based on how well it's doing right now when Bitcoin was sub 50,000, and then how well it did previously when Bitcoin was above 50,000, I think there's a strong chance it's going to repeat its own history and break its previous all-time high. I just feel that based on what I see here so far. We got a strong convergence here on the MACD that just occurred, so that would be a good indication for a long signal. Bear in mind, RSI is just peaking up over 70. That's not bad, but there is still more room for growth. And we're well above both moving averages. So, all good things here for Near. I do think that it's a little on the overextended side right now, but again, that's just me personally. I prefer to I like to buy the dips when, the price is closer to major support levels. And we'll see if we can identify that here as well. And we can go ahead and mark that right now. Does look like there was a pretty strong resistance previously at about 450. So if the price does come back down, we'll see it likely bounce off that. I don't think that's likely though, just based on its current trajectory. It's doing very well. Let's see also too if Fibonacci can tell us any other. Yeah, there's one. So this is a now major support. All right. So bottom line here is that near is looking pretty good. We have a secondary, or primary support at about 590, secondary support at right around 450. Okay. Bear in mind also the RSI is over 70, which basically just means that we have more potential for growth, but there's a likelihood of it possibly retracing back down. So if you are in profit right now, it wouldn't be terrible to consider taking some profits and then wait for the price to come down and possibly bounce off the support level. Or just again, when I say take some profits, 25, 50% tops, you don't need to exit your position. Get some money because honestly, it does look a little overextended. And with RSI being up over 70, I'm guessing that the TD sequential will indicate that we're near the end of this this little run here, because likely this bull run is coming to an end. We're going to need to see some sideways action for this to be a comfortable continuation to the upside. MACD did converge here right at about September 2nd at 1300. Let's go ahead and mark that. And if you're new to the channel, I always mark the convergence of the MACD on the 4-hour chart because first of all, it's like the best indicator you could utilize as a swing trader to kind of get into a position before it takes off. So it's basically just telling you that the bears are giving up and the bulls are taking control. Because you see this here, if you look at this, you see these red lines, that's basically the bears in control. That's the amount of volume that they have in that time frame, and then it switches and shifts gears here. In other words, the price is above, therefore the bulls take control. And then those are kind of oscillators telling you that the exponential moving averages, the EMA of the 12 and the 26, when they intersect in upward fashion, you're shifting that momentum from bearish to bullish. All right, so that's basically what we're looking at there. But generally speaking, if we see here, we had a convergence there and the price took off afterwards. So no surprise there. And why don't we go ahead and take a look at the 1-hour chart and see if the Ishimoku cloud lines up. Yes, it did. And this is awesome too. And again, if you're new to the channel, let me educate you on this because this is probably the second best thing you could do as a swing trader, hodl trader. Most people watching my videos are not necessarily day traders, right? You're more so, buy today, sell a few weeks from now, which is great. And in that sense, what you want to do is you want to use the Ishimoku cloud concurrent with the MACD on the 4-hour chart. So we looked at the MACD already, right? We identified the convergence, whereas a 12 and then it intersects with a 26 in upward fashion, creating that convergence in the MACD. We marked that here. So at 1300 on September 2nd, yesterday, 1 p.m. Pacific, we had a convergence in the MACD. Now on the 1-hour chart, we look at this here. Ishimoku cloud is identifying the fact that we have a break to the upside. In other words, when the price is above the cloud, it's considered a buy signal, and when it's below, it's considered a sell signal. Again, it's not always 100%, right? That's why you want to use it concurrent with the MACD if possible. But if you look back here, there's probably a likelihood there was a MACD convergence here as well, and where you see the price break above and it shoots up. Here as well, considered a short position, you wouldn't have made a lot of profit there. But had you done so here, you would have taken a decent percentage, obviously. Again, easier hindsight's 20/20, but you're looking at about 20% profit had you picked up on that one indicator, or those two essentially working together. So just keep that in mind. These are just really important things to identify when you are kind of doing your analysis, right? So that's why you look at the 1-day chart, hey, what's this average true range? Where are the moving averages? Then you move on to the 4-hour chart, make sure to check the MACD and then switch over to the 1-hour to identify the TD sequential and Ishimoku. So let's go ahead and take a look at TD sequential now. And we can see we're in extreme overtime here. So cool thing is, again, when consolidation periods like this, we see a lot of resets. In other words, you don't hit a 9. So if you're new to the channel or TD sequential in general, you're looking for a 9 to identify if there's going to be a reversal. Commonly, when you see a 9, there's going to be a either sideways action and or a reversal to the downside or upside, depending on the direction. So just say, for example, here, we look back here, we can see that there's a 1 through a 9, right? See, it counts from 1 all the way to a 9. And what it's doing is it's taking the current candlestick and identifying it if it's higher than the 4th previous candlestick. That's really all it's doing. So once we hit this 9, this little bullish trend became exhausted. We saw some sideways action. We see a bunch of resets all the way through here. And then right when the MACD converges, we see it a 1. That 1 identifies the price is moving up, and of course, once we hit a 9, it's supposed to retrace and come back down. It didn't because it had a lot of bullish momentum. There was likely a short squeeze at this major support level, and that's what drove the price up even further, and it continues upwards. So long story short here, we shouldn't expect to see much more continuation of this bullish trend. We should probably see some sideways action just like we saw back here moving forward in order for this bull run to continue. So we want to see this, we're even okay with seeing this, and then it continues to the upside. Right? That's how a good bull run is going to continue, because you need to have these staircase patterns. Okay, so I talked about this a lot in most of my videos. So if you're new to the channel, this is kind of just a quick little heads up. A lot of good bull runs, they're going to be going like this, right? I know that's a terrible line, but you see how there's a pattern where it goes up and over, up and over. A lot of times when you have that, it creates a nice, comfortable, continuation to the upside. Because if you've seen some things increase like this, it has to come down about 50% and level itself out. But if you have a staircase pattern, it's concurrently leveling itself out the entire time. That's the beautiful thing about what we see here. Is yes, it jumped up a little high right there and obviously retraced back down to support, but now it's moving back up, right? So if this moves up too quickly any further, we're going to see it retrace and come back down to this next major support. Right? That's kind of what you like to look for. So just some little education there on the 1 hour chart, of course, for the TD sequential, but just more importantly, how good bull runs are supposed to form. So let's take a look here. One last thing, we'll go ahead and call it a day. EMA and VWAP. This is like the icing on the cake, right? So if we look at all the indicators we've seen so far, we've identified this as a very bullish. It's definitely moving to the upside. We've got a kind of an ascending wedge pattern forming, and we're already in its average true range. And we're shooting for its previous all-time high. Once we've identified all that, that's all well and good, but we need to find a good entry point. So to identify a good entry point, you use EMA and VWAP. So VWAP is this blue line here. It's the volume weighted average price. It's a very underrated tool that I think everyone should be using. It's more used in shorter time frames, so 15-minute charts or less. It's more of a day trader's tool, which is why not a lot of swing traders use it, but I think it's really important to ensure that you are taking a good entry point. In other words, when the price action is moving, right? When the price is above it, it's considered to be a support level. When it's below, it's considered a resistance. So that's kind of the general concept of how the VWAP works. It's like a continuous support and resistance level. What it does, though, is it resets every 24 hours at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So whatever time that is for you in your time zone, it resets at that point, and it'll calibrate itself with the price action again. The reason why it does that is it's built on traditional trading timeframes where you have pre-market, market hours, post-market hours, and once that post-market closes at 5 p.m. Pacific, it resets and starts over again the day after. The reason why that's relevant and important here is just the fact that when you have a standard deviation from that line to the current price action, which we're at about 5% right now, that's healthy. When it's over 10% is when the price has to come crashing back down. Okay. So I like to mention that just so you understand that the VWAP, the only takeaway we want to have here is that the VWAP is a support level and it's a potential resistance, but it does have standard deviation lines that are working that you don't see here, and those are above and below the price, and that essentially keeps the price comfortable within that range, and if it goes too far out, then it essentially has to come crashing back down. So right now we're in really good shape here, honestly. Furthermore, too, we have the EMA line. This is the red lines. That's essentially this red line here. It's an EMA 15 I use. I don't use the 9 or the 20. I use the 15, and the 15 is essentially very beneficial in a lot of ways because it tells you when the bulls are in control or the bears are in control. All right, so we got this price. See, the price comes up, comes down, tests EMA, all good. Testing EMA, even tested and rejected a little bit, but still came up above. Okay. So the beautiful thing about this is the fact that it kind of helps you understand if you're on the right side of the tracks. So in other words, I like to use the analogy of like floating downstream. So if you're in the river and you're floating in an inner tube and you're cruising downstream, drinking, smoking, whatever you want to do, right? You're having a good time because you're not fighting the current. That's what this is. You're rolling downstream with the bulls essentially, and you are taking profits as you go along, right? If you try to buy the dip and try to find the bottom and don't use indicators like this, then you're going to be chasing the bottom. You're going to be basically swimming upstream, trying really hard for nickels and dimes, and it doesn't make any sense. Like, why try to find the absolute bottom? Why not jump in when the price is already 25% of the way to its goal, but you can still get that 25 to 75% gap and then close your position before it gets too high. Again, a lot of different things you can do, of course. You don't have to close your position. It's just an example, but that's kind of what I like to look for. So just to kind of summarize here, a lot of good things here for Near. I feel like it's going to continue to ascend in this wedge pattern that it's forming closer, and it's going to eventually trend towards its previous all-time high. I think that's very likely, just based on its momentum and what I see here so far. Another thing too, as well, I mean, if you look here, there's a significant amount more volume here recently. Okay, that volume increase is extremely important because it gives you a little less volatility and more consistency. In other words, the people that are investing in this bullishly are the ones that believe in it because it's probably got some really strong fundamentals. Because again, I don't really dive into the fundamentals unless I'm invested in the coin myself personally. Since I don't know much about this, I'm sure there's probably some strong fundamental catalysts that are driving the price action up the way that it has. So definitely do your own research and make sure you understand kind of what that looks like. Again, always do your own research before you invest in coins here. Don't just listen to somebody like me on the internet and take their advice. Do your own research, right? Now, if you like what I've done here so far, consider joining my Patreon account. I have all my trades that I share with my community members. I exercise what you see here so far in every one of my trades. And I trade somewhere in the range of 2 to 4 trades per week, and I send out usually a couple of day trades, traditionally with Bitcoin, and then also usually most likely swing trades for my altcoins. I send those out regularly, and we have a live chat there, of course. We can all communicate openly. So check that out in your own time, but now's the best time to register considering we're closer to the first, and the way the billing cycles are, it just works out best that way. So be sure to check that out if you haven't already. But thank you to my community member again for recommending that I cover this. Really do appreciate you. Thank you. You know who you are. Moving forward, I hope you have a great rest of your day. We'll go and see you in the next video. Take care. We'll see you.